All right, let's kick it off.
Oh,
Starting with the most important 2 or 3 slides, I should say. We got our top shippers. They got every single badge. Take your screenshots. Amazing work. Amazing job. We got the K's this time. We didn't leave the K's off. So if you got a K in your name, you're on it this week. Amazing, amazing. Good job, everyone who has claimed every badge. And we'll give it one more second for anyone who wants to get a screenshot because we got some important treasure to dole out. We got some treasure to dole out today with our first gold doubloon giveaway ever. Any Ship 30 call. This is brand new. 14 cohorts, the first time we're doing this. So how this is going to work, the gold doubloons will be given away to only individuals with every single badge at the beginning of each call. To be eligible, you have to have every badge going into that call, so you'll be on the leaderboard. Today's rewards, or doubloons, I should say, are 3 lifetime TypeShare Premier rewards. 100% free, forever TypeShare Premier. And here's how it's going to work. All right. We have 200 people with every single badge. And the way we're going to do this, we're going to pick 3 random numbers to give away, but we don't want anyone to think this is coordinated. So we need someone to pick the numbers. To pick the numbers, whoever the 4th person to drop the word ship in the chat is gets to pick. All right, stop. We hit 4. We hit 4. We hit 4. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Carl Kaufman. All right, Carl. Sorry, you don't win, but you got to pick 3 numbers between 0 and 200. 3 numbers, no more ships in the chat. 0 and 200. We need 3 numbers, Carl. And then Daniel, you can chat me the names as we go. Carl, I need 3 numbers. Come on. 7, 39, and 130. All right, Daniel, chat it to me. Who do we got? Who do we got? And you can double check and matches up with the leaderboard later. Well, actually, no, you can't because I'm not confirming that. Amy Shaw. Is Amy Shaw on the call? If you are, that's amazing. Good stuff. Amy Shaw, congrats. There's 1. Second one. Clive Griffith. Clive Griffith. There we go. 1 more. We got 1 more. And the last number was 139. Last number was 139. And the winner is
the tension.
The tension. Nick Waterhouse. Boom. All right. Amy Shaw, Clive Griffin, Nick Waterhouse. We'll give you your codes for free lifetime TypeShare Premier. Amazing. So to be eligible for our next round of giveaways, gold doubloons, make sure you have every single badge and it's in your best interest. You're getting curriculum rewards. You get your name on the leaderboard. You get all that. And we're hyping it up with some even bigger prizes as we go. And Captain's Table members on Friday this week during our call, we will do this same thing. So don't worry. You'll be eligible for that on Friday of this week for the Captain's Table. All right, let's keep it rocking.
What do you all think? Do you like these giveaways? Should we do more of them? Let us know in the chat real quick. We came up with this idea and we think it's pretty fun.
There we go. And we got some good stuff. I think some of these hats are going to be in order. Some stickers, some laptop swag. We got good things and fun things in the works. So keep it up, keep shipping. This is a blast. All right, let's keep rolling.
Awesome.
Congrats again, Amy, Clive, and Nick.
Well done. All right, let's fly through a couple shout outs. Dr. Mina realized I had multiple posts worth of material. That's what it's all about. Okay. We always say the more you write, the more you write. Okay. The moment you write one thing, it becomes easier to write the second thing. Okay. So as you go along, you notice through 30 days, it's only going to get easier. Well done. Second one, my second ever atomic essay went viral. You'd be astounded how many times this happens in cohorts. Actually, people get 1 or 2 days in and have some giant outcome all of a sudden. And they're like, whoa, I didn't even know this is possible. This is the whole point of writing in social environments. Your blog will never do this. Okay. So really great job, Sai. Really cool to see. Love sharing it. Day 2, 47.9 thousand impressions. Danny, great. I just published my highest performing thread ever. So cool to see. Again, you never know what can happen. The whole point, I like thinking of it as every time you hit publish, you're like spinning the wheel of fortune. And the only way you lose is you stop spinning the wheel of fortune. but every time you hit publish, you never know what outcome you're going to unlock. That's what makes it a game. So well done, everyone. Please keep sharing these wins. We love taking a moment to spotlight them because it just shows everyone in the cohort. These are all the cool things that can happen. So if you see someone else experience something, your whole takeaway should be, wow, I can't wait until I experience something like that too, right? So well done.
All right, couple quick logistics. I already talked about type share. We're too prolific. We're in touch with the developer team. We're getting that figured out. Other than that, don't miss twice. That's the number one goal. Remember, the goal is to write every day, but really the goal is to never miss twice during Ship 30. If you fall off one day, get right back on. Second, keep sharing your learning. Saw some awesome visuals. If you're a visual person and you want to visualize our frameworks, make sure you tweet at us. Make sure you tag us. We'll make sure to give those some love. And then continue to collect your badges, read the deep dives, read the curriculum. All that's there for you. And make sure you're claiming badges. So on Friday, you have a chance again at our gold doubloons, which we'll have to figure out what we're giving away next week or on Friday.
I love the gold doubloons.
All right. Where we are on the course guide. Who's using the course guide? Finding it helpful, checking boxes every single day. If you follow that every single day, you're going to get the most out of Ship 30. So keep that up. After this session, you'll claim your idea machine badge. We also have our first curriculum reward bonus that's going to hit your inbox from the Ship 30 bot after you claim your badge. So be on the lookout for that. It's our endless idea generator one-pager. Check out the text-based curriculum paired with this, and then check out the deep dive. I think this is my favorite deep dive. It's all about how I use the 2-year test and the endless idea generator in my own writing workflow. And I think after this, the EIG comes at you pretty quickly, endless idea generator. When you read the deep dive on that, you really get a good sense for how you can use it on your own. So awesome.
Yeah. And I just want to point out, the reason we give you this in so many different mediums is so that if one's confusing, a different one, hopefully it clicks, so all of these are just different ways of internalizing the information.
All right. Well, we finished last Saturday's call with this for who, so that to start to generate ideas. But today, if you are coming into this with any inkling of, I don't know what to write about, prepare to have that problem demolished, because it is our endless idea generator live session. Cole, you want to dig into the goals of today's session?
Yeah. So the next slide, be prepared. It's a screen full. Okay. We encourage everyone to take a screenshot of it. We're going to reference the idea generator many, many times throughout the cohort. Our goal is to help you understand how this framework works. And then throughout the session, as we go through, we encourage you, as we break it down, make a list of the ideas that you come up with. These ideas, there's no reason why you can't walk away from today's session with, I have a whole nother week of things to write about. Okay. So you put it into practice as we go. And then finally, we're going to do some breakout rooms where you can workshop some of your ideas with other people. We're going to show you how to take one idea, and by just asking a couple questions, that one idea becomes 10, becomes 100, becomes a zillion ideas, right? So that way you can workshop it with some other people. So as we go to this next slide, take a screenshot. We give it to you in all of the other materials as well, but if you want to keep it on hand, and we're going to walk through it step by step so that everyone understands how this endless idea generator works. Okay, so this is what it looks like. There's a bunch of moving pieces here, and we're going to go through each one step by step. But at a high level, what you're going to do is you're going to choose a topic. We're going to show you how to get more specific. We're going to show you how to leverage credibility, whether it's your own or borrowed. And then we're going to give you these different frameworks for how you actually execute the topic. So this makes it easy to understand, okay, as I'm coming up with an idea, what do I do with it, right? So what is the framework for endless ideas? The framework is the topic. What do you want to write about? The credibility, right? Why are you choosing to write about it? And then the path and approach. How are you going to write about it?
And this is an extremely active live session. So our goal is for you to start with your topic, and by the end, have dozens of ideas. So keep that in mind as we're going. We're going to ask you questions to drop in the chat, your topic, your credibility, your path. So stay active on this one because we got a lot coming at you.
Okay, so let's dig in. The topic, right? What are you writing about? So the first big mistake everyone makes when they sit down to write is they go, I want to write about finance. I want to write about real estate. I want to write about crypto. I want to write about writing. Whatever it is that they pick, the first thing that comes to mind is the big overarching category, right? And if you listen, that's kind of like someone saying, I want to write about North America, or I want to write about life, right? It's too broad. So what do we need to do? We need to take this really broad word and we need to narrow it down. So not what do you want to write about, but what specifically, right? Specificity is the secret. So anytime you find yourself going, I don't know what to write about, 10 out of 10 times, it is rooted in not being specific. Because the more specific you get, the easier it is to understand what you're writing about. So what if I'm not sure, right? What if I don't know how to get more specific? I don't know which topic I want to pick, all right? So we have a very easy solution. We call it the 2-year test. Dickie, you want to explain what this is?
So the 2-year test is my favorite framework for thinking I have nothing to write about. And the easiest way to do this is to recognize that your audience of people is everyone on the journey that you've taken over the last 2 years, 10 years, 30 years, whatever it is, but they're just behind you. They're a little bit on the same path, but they're learning, they're younger, they're just starting out, they're beginners, they're just less experienced, not necessarily have to be a beginner. And so the way to think about this is you want to start with a brain dump of everything that you've done in the last 2 years. So skills you've built, struggles you've faced, hobbies you've picked up, problems you've overcome, life transitions you've had, stories you've experienced. All of these are the raw materials with which you can write, right? And everything here is, what have I done over the last 2 years? And you are an expert in solving whatever problems you have over the last 2 years, whatever your experience is. And so a lot of beginner writers say, I can't write about anything because I'm not an expert. And the way I like to say this is, so Cole, you just moved to Miami, right? You couldn't write the ultimate guide to living in Miami, could you? But what you could write was how to spend your first month in Miami to make sure you check everything out.
Or
That's
how
you're
to
an
move
expert
to
in.
Miami.
What'd you say?
Or how to move to Miami, right?
Exactly.
Because I just did it.
From LA.
Yes. So the whole purpose here is we all take for granted the things that we learn along the way. We all operate in a vacuum. We think that the information that we have isn't valuable because we're so accustomed to it. We do it every day, right? But when you put yourself back in the shoes of who you were 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, 2 years ago, you recognize that there's a gap and other people are where you were before you made the transformation that you did. So some 2-year test examples, right? Over the last 2 years, what? Maybe you stopped eating meat and you became a vegan, or maybe you had never exercised before and you finally decided to get a gym membership, or you've been in college for 4 years and you finally graduated, right? All these moments we take for granted because we think, oh, well, I just did something, but we don't think about who are all the other people in life that are thinking about doing that same thing. And now that you've done it, you can go pass your insight and information on to them. So to Dickie's point, moving to Miami, right? There's a lot of people that are thinking, hey, maybe I should move to Miami. I don't need to be an expert. I don't need to be like the travel guru. All I need to do is say, hey, I just moved from LA to Miami. Let me tell you what it was like. Let me tell you what I would have done differently. Let me tell you the mistakes I made when I hired movers, right? All of that is valuable to someone who hasn't done it yet. And so your whole job in coming up with ideas is figuring out what are all those moments where you can pay it forward or pay it backward to the person who is about to do the thing that you just did.
All this is doing is unlocking all the raw material that you potentially could write about. Where I think 99% of writing on the internet is getting comfortable sharing ideas that are obvious to you, but incredibly novel to others, and really would have been incredibly novel to you on your journey 2 years ago, right? You have all this experience that you've built up. Now it's about unlocking that and sharing that. And that's really the secret we're trying to unlock here with the 2-year test.
Yeah. And there's an awesome question in the chat, and I want to tie this together, right? We talk about, well, how do you find the opportunity to create a niche for yourself? So Josephine, I see you asked, like, how long can you talk about any one of these topics? Well, you can see how this works, right? Let's say you just stopped eating meat and you became a vegan, and you start writing things, and all of a sudden all these people start commenting going, hey, I'm thinking about going vegan, right? And so you go, oh, I'm getting a lot of engagement. I should start writing more and more about what my process of becoming vegan was like. And then all of a sudden, fast forward, you're just doubling down on all that data. And then you go, oh, I've decided I'm going to build a whole niche around helping people take their first step as a vegan, right? It's very obvious why you did that, because clearly you went through it, you were resonating with a bunch of people, and the data is telling you that that's where the opportunity is. So let's go through this. What do you want to write about? Take the topic, throw it in the chat. What is something that you want to write about? And we're going to show you how to add specificity. Okay. And notice, I want everyone to pay attention. Notice how the majority of the things that get put in the chat right now are like 1 to 3 words, right? Because that's how we think about ideas. We always think biggest category first. So we're like, I want to write about money. I want to write about coaching. I want to write about career. I want to write about finance, right? But that's really broad. Okay. So that's okay if that's the step 1, but now we need to go into now, how do we add specificity? So how we add specificity is you go, okay, I have these kind of big, broad ideas. Now we need to use the 2-year test to get more and more specific. All right. And how we do this in a very actionable way is you want to get to the point where your specificity is what makes you the expert. You don't need to try and be an expert. All you need to do is get to a point where you're so specific that all you're telling the reader is, this is what I experienced. So
here's what to keep in mind. If you feel imposter syndrome writing about your topic, that's a signal that you are not being specific enough. Because the goal is to add specificity until you feel like such an absolute expert that you could talk about that forever, right? So if it's coaching, you might not be a master coach, but if it's coaching for single moms who just left their job or something like that, where it's, I could talk about that topic forever. That's the goal with getting as specific as possible. And there's 7 ways to do that. Cole, you want to talk about these?
Yeah. So specificity is really just this idea of niching down by, and then you can niche down in a bunch of different ways. You can niche down by industry, right? I don't want to talk about coaching. I want to talk about coaching for tech professionals, or coaching for people who work in wellness, or coaching for biomechanics, like whatever the word is, you're specifying by industry. You could also do it by problem, right? I want to talk about how to be a more effective communicator if you're afraid of public speaking, right? That's a very specific problem. Versus, I want to be a better communicator if you've never spoken on a stage before. Different problem, right? Because someone could have spoken for 10 years and still be afraid of public speaking. And someone could just go, oh, I've just never done it before. I just need some help, right? So what you're doing is, whether it's by price, problem, industry, location, I focus on therapy for people in Chicago versus therapy for people in Minnesota, right? By experience, by demographic, these are all just different ways of getting more specific. So as a question, right, whatever it is that you want to write about, how can you add specificity with any of these things so that all of a sudden it becomes more clear who it is you're writing for?
And here are a bunch of examples, Cole, if you flip to the next. So take a look at this slide, kind of soak on it for a second, and think about, what about your unique experience can you share that falls into these 7 ways of niching down? So I'll give you a tactical example back from the very initial cohort of Ship 30. The initial Ship 30 cohort had nothing to do with learning how to write online, because I had only been doing it for 6 months. Or 9 months. I didn't really know what I was doing, but what I did know was how to build a writing habit. So Ship 30 was all about build a daily writing habit. My experience was start writing if you've never written before. I didn't say I was an expert. I didn't say I had this all figured out. I didn't even say that this was going to work. I said, by the end of this, you will be able to build a writing habit for beginners. So experience, situation, right? You could say, what's another one? By problem, right? How to start writing if your biggest problem is you can't come up with ideas, right? So all of these are just different examples of ways to add specificity. And you want to just think about your unique experience, or whatever experience you want to share and how you can apply these 7 ways.
Yep. And so real quick, as an exercise, take the topic that you chose and throw in the chat, what is one of these ways that you can niche down in that topic, right? So if you go, I want to write about Web3, well, let's get more specific. Web3 for beginners, right? Web3 for someone who wants to launch their first NFT project, right? What is the, Web3 for non-technical people, right? How can you add a level of specificity to whatever it is that you're writing about? And you can add 2 of them. You can add 3 of them, is like how to save your first $1,000 as a college student living in Chicago, right? If that level of specificity makes you uncomfortable, that's the sign that you're doing it right. You want the reader to go, that is exactly me. The mistake is when people go, I'm going to teach you about money, right? You go, well, there's a gazillion things to talk about with money, right? So we need to add specificity to understand who is this for? Why does it help me?
And the goal with this is to combine them until you are uncomfortably specific. Because Cole, if you flip to the next one, what's probably the question you're asking here is, if I get too specific, no one's going to read, right? That's what's going to happen. If I get too specific, there's no way that there are enough people out there who are going to read my stuff. I want a huge audience. First of all, you don't want a huge audience. You want an engaged audience. And the way you do that is when you write something that feels like it was written for you, right? Cole, you tell this story the best about one of your former employers and the magic of specificity. The book, if he wrote a book that was all about you.
Oh, the Craig thing. Yeah, I was like, which story are we talking about? Yeah. The Craig story, right? Is like if someone said, oh, I'll send you a book, do you want it? You're like, well, I don't know, what's it about? But if someone goes, I'll send you a book with everything I think about you, do you want it? You're like, yeah, of course I do. And they're like, and it's 879 pages. Are you sure you want all of it? And you're like, yeah, not only do I want all of it, but is there any that you left out? Give me all the deleted scenes too. I want to know everything you think about me, right? That's when you add specificity and you're very clear about who the reader is and it's for the reader. There's no reader that goes, I want you to stop talking about me, right? The reader goes, you understand my problems? Send me everything, right? I saw a great one in the chat here. Jeremy goes, how to make $200,000 to $300,000 per year with a law degree when you don't want to be a lawyer. That is an astonishing level of specificity. And even if you don't have a law degree or you don't want to be a lawyer, some part of you is like, that's really interesting. How do you make money with a law degree if you're not a lawyer, right? So specificity is the secret. So let's tie together. Yeah, in the last live session, we talked about the for who, so that. Okay, so drop in the chat. This is a very easy way to get more specific. What do you want to write about and for who, right? So add in the for who. Web3 for beginners, how to get started in real estate if you're a single parent, right? How to learn how to start writing online as a teenager, right? Who is the who?
The easiest way to level up the specificity here is with age, I find. So how to get started, or Web3 for middle-aged beginners, or Web3 for teenage beginners, or Web3 for elderly, elderly beginners. Whatever combination you want to make, you can easily ramp up the specificity if you say, this is for people in their 20s. This is for complete beginners. This is for people with under this amount of budget. So what we find almost immediately is people go, okay, I'll add one of these levels of specificity. But I think the real niche happens when you hit 2 or 3 of these at least.
I want to go through a couple examples in the chat to drive this home. So Susie, boundaries for burned out and overwhelmed female attorneys. Okay. And specificity can be applied to every word. Boundaries, what kind of boundaries? Emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, right? So when you land on a word, don't just go boundaries, right? Go what kind of boundaries, right? Or here, another one I saw is like world architecture for millennial travelers. What kind of world architecture? Like creating your own, noticing it, appreciating it, finding it, right? Add specificity. You know, here's another one, preventing burnout for entrepreneurs and executives. What kind of burnout? Like decision fatigue, overworking yourself, stress. There's lots of different kinds of burnout.
So Mr. Cruz, profit coaching for professional service providers generating 500K or more in revenue. How can you say professional service providers and pick one in there? For chiropractors, for dentists, for massage therapists. That is where it goes, if I do that, I'm cutting out so many readers and I don't want to do that. But that's the goal, is you want to be so specific that every single person gets there and it's like, that's me or that's not me. And if it's them, they're going to read it. You're going to solve their problems. They're going to become lifelong readers and fans. Otherwise, they're going to read it. They're going to say, this is not for me, and they're out. And that's your goal. It's not the number of people who don't get it that matter. It's the number of people that do.
Yep. And just to reinforce how we've done this in Ship 30, right? The impulse would be for someone to go, Ship 30 is about how to be a better writer. Well, there's a gazillion types of writers in the world, right? And what is better, right? So all of Ship 30, we go, no, it's not for every writer. It's for people who want to start writing, right? Specificity, right? And it's not actually just writing broadly, because you could write resumes, you could write landing pages, you could write all sorts of different things. It's for people who want to write on the internet. It's for people who want to be digital writers, specificity, right? So every time that you say, I want to write about something, stare at the word and go, what modification word can I put in front or after it to make it more specific, and think of it like a wrench, like keep twisting it until you go, I literally can't get any more specific. Great. Now get one more notch specific and you're good to go.
All right. That's enough on the topic. Let's move on to the credibility.
Okay. So the credibility, the way that most people think about writing, communicating, sharing is they immediately go into, well, I'm not Tony Robbins, I'm not Oprah, I'm not some big well-known guru with 2 million followers. No one cares what I have to say, right? And that's actually not what credibility is. What credibility is about is understanding the level of specificity that you're bringing to the table. Okay, so there's two different types. There's personal, which is you did it, and there's borrowed, which is someone else did it. And both work, right? So personal is you saying, I did this myself. Borrowed is someone else did it, and I'm just sharing what they did. And the way that you get to effective credibility is by getting hyper specific. Okay, so we're going to show you how this works. So here, broad topic, someone goes, I want to write about productivity. I want to write about productivity advice. You get more specific, you niche down by saying, okay, actually, I want to write about productivity advice for middle market SaaS project managers, right? Now, the question to ask yourself is, okay, well, am I a middle market SaaS project manager? Then great. Your credibility is baked in, right? Because all you're doing is saying, this is what I experienced, and I'm going to share that with you, right? And now you can write about all these other topics by just leaning on, I experienced this. You're not trying to be someone, right? Imposter syndrome is like you trying to be something that you're not. You're just saying, hey, I get really specific. This is exactly who I am and what I've experienced. I'm just sharing. Great. That's personal credibility. Okay. What you wouldn't do is you wouldn't go, hey, I'm going to go and teach you how to use the Eisenhower matrix. Why? Because you're not an expert in that general productivity advice, right? You're not the best person to give that insight. Someone else out there is better positioned to do that. Okay. So instead, you apply your personal credibility to the thing that you want to write about. So you go, how middle market SaaS project managers can use the Eisenhower matrix. Now the reader goes, oh yeah, you're not trying to be some guru. You're not trying to be something that you're not. You're just telling me how you did it and how I can too. That's the whole secret.
And most people think, hey, I want to write about productivity advice, but I'm just like you said, I'm not some guru. And the way to crush that is through your specificity, right? So it's, hey, I'm sharing what's worked for me. And the way you do that was with our first couple steps of niching down by price, lever, demographic, all those different ones. Now, let's say, hey, I actually don't feel like I'm an expert in any level of specificity. I kind of want to learn about this topic, right? So it's almost the reverse of the 2-year test, where instead of saying all the things you've learned in the past 2 years, you say, what are all the things I want to learn about in the next 2 years? And then you say, instead of saying I'm the expert, I'm going to go find all of the actual experts and curate and talk about their experience. So I'll share a couple examples. So we have the Eisenhower matrix. If you wrote a post that said, here's how to use the Eisenhower matrix, and you had 3 followers, most people are going to come to your page, say, you don't have any credibility to talk about this. I'm not going to read this. Gone. But if you instead said, I studied 10 billionaires, here's how they manage their time with the Eisenhower matrix, you could have 0 followers, 1 million followers. It doesn't matter. People are going to read that exact thing. Why? Because you've borrowed credibility. So you need to figure out, if you're going to talk about a broad topic like productivity advice, you need to borrow credibility. Or you get super specific and say, this is exactly for for who it's for. Okay. So I'll give you one more example of my story when I shared all of my writing advice in 2021. I wasn't claiming to be an expert on the topic of writing, but I really wanted to learn how to improve. So what did I do? I studied all of the greats. And instead of saying, hey, here are my writing frameworks, I said, I studied them. I did all the hard work for you. Here's what I learned, right? So here's an example on the left of my thread on Gary Halbert. It was everything I learned about about writing from Gary Halbert. I shared it, and it was one of my most popular. And you notice I don't come out and say, here are my $1 billion copywriting tips. I borrow credibility with Gary Halbert. On the other side, we have Cole, who's been writing since 2014 and has direct experience being a ghostwriter. And it starts over the last 4 years. I've written for more than 2,000 articles for startup founders, C-suite executives. That is personal credibility. I could not have written that, right? So it's all about the self-awareness to recognize whether or not you have the credibility to talk about your topic. If you don't, you either need to get more specific or you need to borrow that credibility.
Yeah. And so the big question that kind of arises at this point is people thinking, well, which one am I? And the reality is that you're both, right? It's actually beneficial for you to share, this is what I've experienced, and let me go leverage other people's credibility too. So now in the next example, notice how these are flipped. Now here, Dickie's the one with the personal credibility. College completely failed in teaching me how to write, right? Why can he say that? Well, because college failed him in teaching how to write. Personal credibility, I experienced it, right? And vice versa, even though I've been writing forever and I have my own frameworks and I have my own things to share, there's benefit in me going, hey, I learned things from other writers too. I'm going to go curate, I'm going to borrow Ryan Holiday's credibility. I'm going to borrow James Patterson's credibility. I'm going to borrow another writer's credibility so that I attract all those readers to my own work as well. So it's not a one or the other. It's both serve a purpose.
And what you'll find is a timeless formula is to continue to learn from people years ahead of you and share with people behind you, right? So my journey has been, I started writing, I built a writing habit. I learned how to build a writing habit and I shared it with people behind me. And then I said, I want to learn how to actually write well. I'm going to go study all the greats, share it for people behind me. And now I can come up with my own writing frameworks because I'm able to kind of iterate on what I've learned, right? So it's this constant period of learning, sharing. And if you don't feel like an expert, you can just go learn more and share with the people behind you.
Yeah. And I just see the question in the chat, this idea of like, are you allowed to share other people's stuff? I mean, look, when someone goes, hey, Cole, I just read your book. These are the 12 biggest insights I had from your book. Here's an atomic essay on them. Here's a thread on them, right? My reaction to that isn't, hey, you're stealing my work. My reaction is, hey, thanks for distilling my work down and sharing it with other people. And now I want to share your work, right? So it becomes this virtuous cycle of there's a lot of benefit in curating and leveraging other people's credibility, right? Just like how when you're sharing something from your own perspective, you want other people to go, hey, I love Dickie's framework on this, right? I love Cole's framework on this, right? That's how the internet goes round. So drop in the chat real quick. Which one of these two do you find yourself gravitating to? Is it, I want to use my personal credibility. There's things I want to talk about. There's things I've experienced, personal stories, personal insights, frameworks, things like that. Or do you find yourself leaning more toward, I'm learning something. I want to borrow other people's credibility. I want to curate. Which one?
And here's where it gets fun, because say you have two topics you really want to write about. It's health and fitness and architecture. But you're an expert in health and fitness because you've been training for 20 years. You've run marathons. You've benched 315 pounds. You've done all these different things. But on architecture, you just bought a book on beginner architecture. You can use both types of credibility in different ways, right? So one topic, you're going to say all your personal credibility. In architecture, you're going to use all borrowed credibility. And what's going to happen? You're going to learn architecture very quickly because you're studying the greats and learning and sharing, distilling. And then you're also going to build an audience on the health and fitness side because you've done it and people are going to pay attention. So it's all a mix and game. You have both at your disposal. But I think what I love so much about this framework is it completely crushes the idea of I need to be an expert and have it all figured out. You don't have to have it all figured out. You either need to get more specific until you're talking about something that you do have it all figured out for, or you're going to go borrow and learn and don't claim to be an expert and say, instead, I'm just learning and sharing what I'm going.
Yep. And the cherry on top is both of these are amazing forcing functions for your own learning, right? When you write about something from personal experience, you get to reflect on it. It crystallizes for you, and vice versa. I know Dickie does this. Every time I buy a book, the first thing I ask myself is, how can I curate this and leverage it into an atomic essay? How can I turn what I learned from this book into a Twitter thread? What's that going to do? It's going to force me to distill it. It's going to force me to understand it. It's going to force me to crystallize it. So these are all great, like they're really effective ways of building an audience and creating a niche for yourself, but they're also really great ways to just learn and internalize the knowledge for yourself.
All right, deep breath. We're 2 out of the 3 ways there, and now we kind of ramp it up. So we talked about the topic. We talked about the credibility. Everyone ready to move on to the next thing? The path and the approach. Drop in the chat. We still firing. We paying attention. Good. All right. Next, we have the 4A framework. So the 4A framework is figuring out how to say one topic in 4 different ways. And any idea on earth can be talked about in the 4 ways we are going to talk about, which is actionable. Here's how. Analytical. Here's a breakdown. And we're going to walk through examples of all these. Aspirational, which is here's the story. And yes, you can. And then anthropological, which is here's why. Here's why that's happening. So the beauty of the 4A framework is that once you see it, you seriously can never read anything the same way again. Every time you come across a piece of content, you're going to say, what angle of the 4A framework am I using here? And you can build an entire career talking about one path within one topic. So Cole, you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah. So this is one of those things that, again, like Dickie said, once you see it, you can't unsee it. When you sit down to write, you're not just writing the topic. A lot of people can write about that topic, right? It's how you're choosing to write about that topic. Okay, so we're going to show you 4 awesome examples, and you'll see this very clearly. The light bulb will go off. Okay, so let's say you go, I want to write about money, or you use specificity and I want to write about personal finance, or I want to write about personal finance for millennials, or whatever it is, right? You get more and more specific.
Here, Cole, before we go, drop in the chat your favorite personal finance writer. Who comes to mind when you think about talking about the world of finance in general? But then keep going. Ramit Sethi, Tony Robbins, Ramit Sethi, Ray Dalio, Warren Buffett, Morgan Housel, Robert Kiyosaki. All right, good. I wanted to make sure we hit all four before we went to the next slide, because as you can see, everyone's kind of got a little bit different of an idea of someone who talks about personal finance, right? You would think this is the personal finance topic, right?
Mhm.
But these individuals, and we're about to show you, have built a career around one path on one topic.
Yep. And the whole reason we're leaning into this, I know we're delaying the gratification, just hang with us, is that how most people just look at these like different writers or different creators and they just go, oh, I just love that person's voice, or oh, that person's just really talented, or oh, that person's just really clever. But what we're showing you is there's actually a reason why you gravitate to the things that you do. And the reason is because you gravitate to different paths, right? Some people, when they want to learn about money, they go, I want you to teach me how to do it. If you do that, you're going to go to something more actionable, right? Ramit Sethi, I will teach you step by step. Okay. Other people go, look, I'm not looking for the steps. I want to understand why things are working the way that they are. Break it down for me, right? Analytical. Ray Dalio. You don't read Ray Dalio to learn how to open a checking account and the importance of saving a portion of your paycheck, right? You read Ray Dalio to understand analytically what's happening macroeconomically, okay? Or some people go, you know what? Yeah, I'd love some steps. I'd love the actionable stuff, but really what I want is I just want to know that I can do it. I just want you to motivate me, right? Tell me that you did. Tell me that it's possible. I want to be inspired, aspirational, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad is like, it's not the most quote unquote helpful book. It's not the most actionable book, but it's incredibly aspirational, right? So why do people read that? Because that's the emotion they're looking for. And then the psychology of money, right? The psychology of money is not teaching you step by step how to do something. It's not breaking down what's happening macroeconomically. It's also not even really inspiring you. There's no part of Morgan Housel's story that's like, I did it and you can too, right? All he's doing is going, hey, let me explain why things are the way that they are. Let me go into the psychology of how people have relationships with money, right? So that's why we point this out, because it's not just, I want to write about a topic. And it's also not just, I want to write about a topic specifically. It's, I want to write about a topic specifically in what way? And that's where you have to pick one of these paths. So let's go through each one real quickly so that you understand how they work.
All right, let's start with actionable. So these are bang how-to guides, actionable pieces of content. They're going to take a reader and show them how to do something step by step. By the end of this piece, you'll understand how to do something that you didn't know how to do beforehand. So that's sharing tips, tools, hacks, advice, resources, frameworks, ultimate guides, curating, anything that helps the reader learn or accomplish something, right? So drop in the chat, who is writing actionable things? You feel yourself gravitating towards sharing actionable pieces of content. And we'll talk about how you combine these at the end. But actionable, my favorite way to write. I love when I have an idea in my head and say, how do I get this done? This is the exact step I take. Bang, 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 bang. Reader gets to the end and is like, I can't believe I just learned how to do this so quickly. I'm a reader for life. So that's actionable. It's how to do something.
Yeah.
All right, Cole, you want to talk about analytical?
Analytical is, I mean, the easiest way to recognize it is just anything with numbers, right? Let's talk about a trend. Let's talk about like reasons why, this is happening numerically, this is happening numerically. It can also be breakdowns of things. So I want to analyze, right? So someone's like, hey, I have a landing page and I made these 5 tweaks and my conversions went up 5x. Let me break down what happened. Let me analyze the science experiment that I just did. So anytime you're analyzing something, right, you recognize that's very different than giving someone the steps. It's not how to, you're explaining and analyzing why something happened. And then you might combine it with analytical and go, or actionable and go, now here's how you can do it too.
Right. And you can start to think about, what would credibility look like for an analytical piece? I studied 500 landing pages. Here's the breakdown of the 7 things that converted the most. There you go. Right. Personal credibility, a little bit borrowed, but I spent all this time. I'm borrowing from these high converting landing pages. Here's the breakdown. Here's the swipe file of the 50 best headlines ever written on the internet. Borrowed credibility, right? Or here's a swipe file of my 50 best headlines ever written on the internet. Personal credibility, right? So you can start to see how the EIG comes and works together. I know it's a lot all at once, so you're going to have to soak in it for a little bit after, but analytical, think teardowns, examples, trends, predictions, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, drop in the chat, who's going to write some analytical things? Anyone immediately think analytical? I love to break things down. I love to study them. I love to show the reader what exactly is going on. Awesome. All right. After analytical, we have aspirational. This is another personal, you're sharing your personal story or stories of other people. Basically, you want to tell the reader whatever it is you're trying to do, yes, you can do it. So it could be personal stories or curated stories, right? You can see how credibility ties in here. Lessons, mistakes, reflections, stories of growth, underrated traits, advice you wish you knew, advice billionaires gave to their former selves. All these different things are aspirational, showing the reader, yes, you can do this. You take a core idea and you show them whatever it is you're thinking about. Here are examples of other people who've done it just like you. Who's going to write aspirational? So if you have stories, if you've lived an incredible life experience, right, you're going to share your aspirational. And when you start to mix these, we'll show you some examples. But again, we see a lot of people like aspirational as well.
Yeah. And the big thing I want to emphasize here is that aspirational doesn't mean that you necessarily achieved something. Like mistakes are a huge piece of this, right? So one of the things I love writing about are all the mistakes I made building my first company, right? It's not like I achieved some huge exit. It's not like I am some, one of the top 10 best entrepreneurs in the whole planet, right? But there's a lot that I can share by saying, these are all the mistakes I made, and here's what I learned, right? That's going to help the next person who's thinking about starting their first company. So aspirational can also be the things didn't go according to plan, and then you sharing that.
The only shortcut in life is learning from the mistakes of people on the path that you're trying to take. Because most of success isn't about doing the right things. It's simply about avoiding doing the wrong things. And so if you reverse that and say, as a writer, the most valuable thing I can provide is to save the people behind me time, experience, right? If you're reading this, there's a chance you've read a Twitter thread of mine saying, here are the mistakes I made when I started writing, or here's the playbook I would have followed, or here are all the things that I believed that were incorrect, right? That was me saying, hey, I know there are a lot of beginners who are going to follow this bad playbook that a lot of people put on the internet. Instead, here's what I think you should follow because here's what worked for me.
Yeah. And anthropological is usually the hardest one for people to kind of wrap their heads around. This has more to do with psychology. It's the underlying reasons. It's the what's the real reason you're being held back? What are the underlying fears, the struggles, paradoxes, right? That's why Morgan Housel's book is such a great example. The psychology of money, right? He's not teaching you how to save or how to make money. It's more, hey, let's think about human nature. Why are we doing the things that we're doing? And so anthropological, you walk into a bookstore, there's a whole section that's all like pop psychology, pop science. You could even say like Malcolm Gladwell, very anthropological. Like, here's why we do the things that we do, right? So drop in the chat, is anthropological something that you've played with, something that you want to play with? Is this one of the forays that is exciting to you?
I love it.
And so we get this question all the time whenever we go through this, which is, but wait, can I combine these? And the answer is yes, of course you can, right? Whenever we were talking about this, you might combine actionable and analytical. You might combine aspirational and anthropological. You can combine them in different ways. Our goal here is for you to make that choice consciously, right? So it's worth recognizing whenever you're writing, is your audience really engaging with your actionable stuff? Or are they engaging with your aspirational stuff? Or are they engaging with your analytical stuff? Mm-hmm. Right? And so when you go to write every day, or you go, I want to launch a newsletter, or I want to create a course, or I want to write an ebook or whatever, right? You have to start with this question of, well, which one is the reader most interested in, right? Are they joining my email list because they want to be inspired? Or are they joining my email list because they want me to teach them step-by-step how to do something? And the answer to that question drastically changes who you attract and what their expectations are. So I'm sure everyone here knows the feeling where you follow someone or you subscribe to a newsletter or you pick up a book, and like, let's say you buy a book and you go, oh, I want this book to teach me everything about, how to get started cooking my own dinners, right? You've never cooked before and you're like, I want to learn how to cook. And then you buy the book and the book doesn't give you any steps. It just tells you how great cooking is and tells you their life story about being a chef, and it's all inspiring. You want to chuck the book across the room and light it on fire, right? It's not because the book isn't good. It's because your expectations were, I want to learn step by step. And what you're giving me is inspiring. And so that's the question you have to ask yourself, is like, which one of these paths am I giving to the reader?
And this is all the lean writing approach, right? Every data point you put out there is some kind of path here. You're going to feel, hey, I really like to write actionable stuff, or I really like to write anthropological stuff, and my audience liked it too. And now I'm going to double down on that. And then I'm going to send that topic back through the endless idea generator. And I'm going to generate 50 more ideas on just that specific why you should start running if you're in your 30s, or how you should start running if you're in your 30s, or my story starting to run in my 30s, right? You see how this all builds on one another in our first 2 live sessions. So drop in the chat, which do you find yourself gravitating the most to? And I say combine 2 of them. Combine 2 of them into actionable and analytical, or aspirational and anthropological. And if you don't know, that's okay too, because you're going to get to explore a ton. But I find most people, for me, I really like actionable, and I'm leaning into aspirational, right? I've done some fun things, and now I'm starting to share my unique experience of learning and growing and personal growth and all that, and combining it with, here's my story and here's how to take action on it. That to me resonates. But some other people might go, no, I just really like to break things down and show why. For me, it's teardowns, analytical, and anthropological, right? It's all an experiment, and hopefully you're leaving this call excited about all the different paths you could take, right?
Yes.
You might have come into this thinking, oh, I can only write about productivity advice, but now you have years of potential experiments to write,
Yeah. And what,
all right, here, go ahead.
What you're ultimately going to find is that one or a specific combination of these becomes your sweet spot. Like, it took me years to figure out, like, that sweet spot of actionable and aspirational for me. Ooh, like, whenever I play in that sweet spot, it feels easy for me. It resonates with readers. That's great. And then over the years, I'm like, oh, okay, actually, I can do analytical kind of well too, but I have to tie analytical to writing, so like, okay, cool. There's something there. I can work on that. These are all just different skills. So,
all right, deep breath, 2-minute recap. Everyone ready? Pay attention to the recap, because we're going to ask you for your golden nuggets afterwards. All right, starting with the endless idea generator overview, topic, credibility, path, and approach. What do we start with? It feels like this was a month ago, all the way back at the beginning of this call. The 2-year test, figuring out what topics you can and want to write about. Read the deep dive after this, and you'll see mine. I shared 9 of them, 9 things that I've done over the last 2 years that I've started to write about. Then you get specific. You pull a lever, price, problem, industry, location, situation, experience, demographic, whatever it is to make yourself an expert in talking about that topic. Then you pick your credibility. Am I the expert, or am I finding the experts? I'm doing both. You get to mix and match. You get tons of opportunities to share. You're going to learn. You're going to share with people behind you, share with people in front of you, just like that. After that, you pick your 4A paths: actionable, analytical, aspirational, anthropological. Again, you get to choose all of these. Write about whichever ones you want. Explore a bunch of different ones over the next 30 days and use the EIG checklist to see all of it on one page, just like that. So that is the endless idea generator. There was a lot in here. At the end of this session, when you claim your badge, we're going to send you a endless idea generator 1-page cheat sheet from the captain's table that you're all going to get access to when you claim your badge. And it'll have this on there. It'll also have just a step-by-step checklist for generating all your ideas. So drop in the chat your golden nugget. Which one of these could be the whole thing? Could be all of them. What are you walking away with? And also, scale of 1 to 10, how'd this session go? How's your mind feeling? Are you excited to write? Are you ready to? All right, let's see. Chat is blowing up. Look at that. Charged up, excited, right? Love this. Good. This is our most packed live session, I think. We don't stop. I'm out of breath. I got a light sweat going because I feel so good about this stuff. It's amazing. All right. Way
Love
to
it.
share, guys. Way to share. 2 types of credibility. Awesome. Okay. So after this, we have 30 minutes of breakout rooms if you can stick around. Otherwise, go claim your badge, unlock the bonus reward, get on the leaderboard so you can claim the gold doubloons or be eligible for your gold doubloons on Friday. What were our winners? Amy, Clive, and Nick, right? Amy Shaw, Nick Waterhouse, Clive Griffith, I think were the 3. Amazing stuff. We're going to get you set up with your lifetime timeshare premier codes. And other than that, keep on riding, folks. It's day 3. We got 27 to go. Hopefully, at the end of this session, you're walking out of here with a ton of different ideas. Overwhelmed with ideas to write about. That is a great problem to have. So that's all we got for today. We got breakout rooms coming up. Replays will be in your inbox. Go claim your badges. Keep writing. And that's it.
Epic. What a day. What a day. Okay. Let's jump into breakout room.